My commitment is to be a partner through the Gates Foundation. I recently made a commitment that my wealth will be given away over the next 20 years. And so you can see, I'm extremely lucky. My wealth has gotten to a very high level here. And now by accelerating my giving, I will have the Gates Foundation take all of those resources. And in fact, one thing that I haven't said publicly before is that, as we think about the priorities and the great partnerships we have, the majority of that funding will be spent on helping you address challenges here in Africa.
My people, Bill Gates recently made a huge announcement. He has pledged to give away the majority of his $200 billion fortune to Africa to fight poverty, improve health, and transform education. That's right. One of the richest men in the world just said, I want to see my money do the most good. And I believe that place is Africa. Now, on the surface, that sounds incredible. The headlines call it historic, game-changing, a new era for Africa of sorts. But let's pause right here, because we've been here before, right? Billions have flowed into Africa over the last 50 years. So why hasn't it worked? Why are African schools still broken? Why are hospitals still underfunded? Why do we keep hearing the same promises with very little to show for it? The truth is, money alone has never saved Africa, and it won't start now unless it's paired with a new mindset, a new model, and real African leadership. So today we're asking the question that matters most. How can this $200 billion actually yield real, tangible results for Africa? Not just for press coverage, not just for donor ego, but for our people, for generations to come. We're going to break it down. Why aid alone hasn't worked, what needs to change, the model Africa actually needs to turn billions into long-term solutions, what should top the priority list, and why it matters where the money goes. But most importantly, how Africans can lead this moment with transparency, strategy, and bold vision. Because this isn't just a gift, it's a test. We're going to break it down, but first, a big welcome to all of our new subscribers and members. I'm so glad you're here. And if you're watching and haven't joined us yet, consider this your personal invitation. Because here at Planet Genius TV, we're not just building a channel. We're creating a home for global Black stories that are told with truth, with intention, and with power. And if that speaks to you, and I hope it does, then hit subscribe and tap the bell for alerts. Also consider joining our membership community or drop in a super thanks to support our channel and help us remain independent and unapologetic. All right, now let's get into it.
The goals here are pretty basic. They really speak to our values. Mothers should survive delivery. Babies should survive past their 5th birthday. Kids should be well nourished. Many of these infectious diseases should go away, and the rest within 20 years should be at a very low level. And by unleashing the human potential through health, through education, every country in Africa should be on a path to prosperity. And that, path is an exciting thing to be part of creating that. And so that's how I intend to focus all of my work for the rest of my life, because there's nothing more important. Thank you.
All right, so earlier this month, Bill Gates stood at the African Union headquarters in Addis Ababa and made one of the biggest philanthropic commitments in history. The majority of my wealth, he said, will go to improving health, education, and opportunity for the people of Africa. That's a pledge of over $100 billion, potentially climbing up to $200 billion as his estate transitions through the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. And this isn't just some vague promise for the future. No, According to Gates, the bulk of this money will be directed toward Africa over the next 20 years, and the foundation will wind down completely by 2045. So what's the plan? Well, Gates says the funding will focus on primary health care, maternal health, childhood vaccines, nutrition, disease prevention, education access, especially for girls, with digital tools and teacher training, innovation and tech using AI, data and diagnostics to leapfrog development goals. And this is key, partnering with African governments that demonstrate real commitment to their citizens' well-being. Sounds good, right? But here's where the questions start. Because while the number sounds big, we've heard this story before. This is the same continent where billions in aid have come and gone. Yet schools still lack chalk. Clinics still don't have electricity. And young people are still fleeing for better opportunities abroad. So the real question isn't just what Gates is given. It's how that money will be used. Who will control it? What systems will it support or undermine? And what kind of model will actually work? Because let's be clear, if we keep pouring billions into broken systems without fixing the foundation, we're just funding failure at scale.
Basically, aid has become an industry. There are just way too many vested interests. And by and large, the criticisms that my book has been receiving are coming from those quarters, people who actually have a vested interest to see the continual cycle of Africa in despair so that they can justify their existence.
What sort of people are you talking about?
I'm talking about academics. I'm talking about people from the NGO community. I'm talking about people who are policymakers and politicians who know that it doesn't work. The evidence has shown it doesn't work. In 1970, 10% of Africans lived in poverty. It's now more like 70%. In many countries, as high as 85% of Africans are living in poverty at a time when the aid model has become so dominant.
Now let's get into the uncomfortable truth. Africa has received over $1 trillion in aid since the 1960s. $1 trillion for food, for health, for infrastructure, for education. And yet, over 600 million Africans still don't have access to electricity. Millions of kids go to school every day without teachers or textbooks. And basic health care, still out of reach for far too many. So what's going wrong? Here's the problem with the traditional aid model. One, it's top down, not ground up. You see, decisions are made in Geneva, Washington, or Seattle, not in Accra, Nairobi, or Kinshasa. Local communities have little say in where the money goes or how it's spent. So what do we get? Clinics with no medicine, wells that break and never get fixed, textbooks printed in Europe about places African kids have never been. And number two, it creates dependency, not sustainability. Most aid is project-based. You get funding for 2 to 3 years, then the money just disappears. No long-term planning, no real systems built. So governments just learn to chase donors rather than building capacity. And thirdly, it rewards corruption, not results. Now let's be honest. Money with no oversight invites mismanagement. And in too many cases, foreign aid has propped up bad leadership as long as the optics look good for Western PR. And here's the kicker. Donors often care more about their own success metrics than local realities. Did the vaccine numbers go up? Great. Never mind if the entire supply chain is broken or if the clinic has no electricity. And number four, it undermines local institutions. Aid often bypasses governments altogether, creating parallel systems, foreign-run NGOs, imported solutions, short-term fixes. So instead of strengthening ministries of health or education, we weaken them. We make them irrelevant. So no, money isn't the problem. The model is. We don't need another donation. We need a new design. A model built on partnership, not paternalism. On investment, not charity. On transparency, not blind trust. And most importantly, on African leadership, accountability, and long-term vision.
There's only a few things we bring uniquely. We bring our resources with the long-term view, and our scientific understanding, and taking science and saying, not only making something cool, but making it so cheap, so easy to deliver, that even in the most remote rural location. And so many times we'll come up with something, we'll say, hey, this is really good. It won't actually fit. The response is not very strong. When we first said, let's do normal autopsies, we were told, no, that won't happen. It was this thing called the minimally invasive autopsy that allowed us now to gather data and really understand, okay, what's left to be solved in terms of child survival.
And so now we have to ask, if A doesn't work, what will? What kind of model could actually transform this $200 billion into lasting change? Let's talk about something radical. What if we stopped treating this money like charity, right? And started treating it like investment? Think about that. Because here's the truth. Charity asks, how can we help the poor? But investment asks, how do we build something powerful, something scalable, something that grows? And if Bill Gates is serious about transforming Africa, then he needs to shift from being a donor to being a partner in Africa's future. Here's what this new model should look like. Number one, we need to think returns, not just relief. Instead of just measuring lives that are saved, let's measure systems that are built. Let's invest in solutions that pay dividends in health, in productivity, in GDP growth. Take childhood health, for example. Studies show that investing just $10 per child in vaccines and nutrition can boost education outcomes, reduce fertility rates, and drive long-term economic growth. That's not a donation. That's a development multiplier. And number two, we need to leverage local governments. Don't bypass them. For years, aid agencies have avoided working directly with African governments because of corruption fears or red tape. So they fund NGOs instead. But that just creates a broken system. If we're going to transform health and education access across the continent, we need to build up public institutions, not work around them. Let the Gates Foundation fund innovation and delivery, but tie the money to reform, to leadership, to transparency, to real measurable outcomes. And number three, we need to co-fund, don't just gift. If this is going to be sustainable, African governments must have skin in the game too. They should be required to. So we need co-investment models where donor funds match domestic spending. Yes. So you commit 1% of your GDP to health, and the foundation matches it. That creates shared ownership and pressure to follow through. Number four, prioritize local innovation and African expertise, and this is critical. We have the brains, we have the ideas. What we often lack is the capital. This is Gates' chance to invest in African researchers, engineers, educators, and public health experts, to fund African-led R&D, to build African tech for African problems. Africa doesn't need saviors. What it needs are supporters of African solutions. This is the shift that is needed. From giving to growing, from aid to agency, from charity to capital that helps Africa build for itself. Because if this $200 billion is going to matter, it can't just save lives, my people. It has to change systems.
Although the Gates Foundation does most of its work in health with new tools and helping pilot delivery programs, we also do a great deal of work in agriculture. And when we first got started, I didn't understand how important agriculture is. It's the backbone of the economy. It's also key to helping kids be fully nourished. That makes a big difference. And giving those farmers all the information and tools they need is a key goal for us. If they had the best weather data, pricing data, information about the best seeds to use, if the seeds were improved a great deal, if they could economically get fertilizer and the best fertilizer exactly matched to the needs of their soils, we would have great productivity increases. In fact, we're very committed to make that happen.
So now that we've talked about the model, let's talk about the mission. If you had $200 billion to spend, what would you fix first? Because let's be honest, you can't fund everything, right? You shouldn't fund everything. You fund what moves the needle. And if we're serious about transformation, not just tinkering around the edges, then this money needs to go where it builds the strongest possible foundation for the future. Here's what should top the list. Number 1, primary health care and nutrition. Now, this is non-negotiable. Because if people are too sick to learn, too hungry to focus, too weak to work, nothing else matters, right? So fund maternal and child health, nutrition programs, and immunization infrastructure. Expand community health worker networks, the backbone of rural health care. Strengthen public health systems, not just vertical programs for one disease. This is how you stop preventable deaths. This is how you stop preventable deaths. This is how you buy back years of productivity. This is how you give children a chance to thrive before they ever enter a classroom. Number 2, we need quality education and skills training, not just access, but quality. We've built schools, but have we trained enough teachers? Do we have the textbooks, the technology, the accountability? Invest in teacher training and retention. Modernize curricula to match the 21st century. Expand technical and vocational education so young people can actually get jobs, not just degrees. And don't forget girls' education, the single most powerful lever for long-term economic and social development. Yes. And number 3, infrastructure for health and learning. Let's be real, you can't teach in classrooms without roofs. You can't deliver babies in clinics without power. So let's invest in the basics that make all other systems function. Clean water and sanitation, electricity, digital connectivity, transport for rural access. Without this, we're pouring water into a bucket with holes. And number 4, research, innovation, and African-led institutions. It is time to trust African minds with African solutions. So fund research hubs that are focused on public health, education, climate, and AI. Invest in institutions like the University of Global Health Equity in Rwanda. Create innovation funds for African EdTech, health tech, and agri-tech startups. Because we're not just a place to donate to, we're a place to invest in. So yes, there are many needs, but if this money is going to build, not just Band-Aid, these are the foundations: health, education, infrastructure, innovation, led by Africans for Africans.
Yeah, so the foundation, hopefully is well aware that we don't understand the on-the-ground challenges, and that all we can do is, facilitate as a partner. And so, going out into villages and sitting with women's groups and hearing them talk, going into a ward during the malaria season where you see all those kids there, knowing that a lot of those kids won't survive, and then meeting with partners. We are, our partners here in Africa, not just the governments, but both for-profit, nonprofit groups work with, are building up their capacity. And that's why it was so much fun today to talk about the exemplars in Africa.
Yeah.
If we took the best practices in every country, tax collection, fiscal management, prioritizing primary health care, managing that workforce well, having the supply chain, the data systems, if we took the best practices throughout the continent and adopted them broadly, we wouldn't even need 20 years to get countries to great health and self-sufficiency.
Now let's get real. because all the funding in the world won't save us if it ends up in the wrong hands. And Africa has a long history of money just disappearing. From ghost schools to phantom clinics to overpriced contracts with cousins. We've seen how corruption and weak governance can bleed progress dry. So if this $200 billion is going to do more than just make headlines, we need three things. Number one, bold, transparent leadership. Every country receiving Gates Foundation funds must make one thing clear. We're not just here to receive, we're here to lead. That means publishing budgets and expenditure reports, opening up procurement processes to public oversight, replacing political appointees with qualified professionals, and the most important part, creating an independent oversight body with its own mandate and legal protection that survives election cycles and party changes. Because leadership isn't just about sitting at the table. It's about protecting the public interest once the money arrives. Number two, we need data, dashboards, and independent monitoring, because what gets measured gets managed. So Gates should build public dashboards that track every dollar, what's funded, where it's going, and what's being delivered. Fund independent African watchdog groups to verify progress, expose misuse, and suggest mid-course corrections. Use performance-based funding. Money only flows when milestones are met. No more trust us funding. This needs to be a partnership based on results, not rhetoric. And number three, civic engagement, because the people are the safeguards. At the end of the day, the citizens are the first and last line of defense. Communities must be empowered to demand answers from local officials, from ministries, from donors. Civil society must be funded, not just tolerated, to organize, monitor, and push for reform. And African media must stay vigilant, reporting not just on the launch of projects. And African media must stay vigilant, reporting not just on the launch of projects, but on what happens after the ribbon is cut. Because this isn't just about what Bill Gates does with his money. It's about what we do with the opportunity. This is a defining moment, not just for Gates, not just for governments, but for Africans. We've been here before. Big pledges, big promises, big numbers. But if this $200 billion is going to be different, we have to treat it differently. With vision, with discipline, with unity, and yes, with leadership. So my people, where do we go from here? Bill Gates has made the pledge. The money, at least on paper, is coming. But the real story hasn't even started. Because this moment isn't about one billionaire, right? It's about a continent. It's about whether we will use this moment to build real systems or just recycle another round of broken promises. It's about whether our leaders will rise to the occasion or fall back into old habits of dependency and dysfunction. And it's about whether we, the people, will finally demand more transparency, more accountability, and more ownership of our own future. Because, let me be clear, this potentially close to $200 billion, it could be a turning point. It could do a lot of good. It could help Africa eliminate child mortality. It could train millions of teachers, equip clinics, fund African innovators, transform our systems from fragile to world-class. Or it could disappear quietly into bureaucracy, into corruption, into waste. The difference? Us. We must demand a new model, one that's built on investment, not charity, leadership, not handouts, strategy, not sentiment. So here's my challenge to you. If you're in government, fight for systems that last. If you're in civil society, watch every dollar like it's yours. If you're in the diaspora, speak up, contribute, build bridges. And if you're just a listener who cares about this continent, stay engaged, stay informed, and stay loud. Because this isn't just Gates' moment. This is Africa's moment. This is the world's moment. Because when Africa rise, we all rise, despite what they told you. And we're not waiting to be saved. We're ready to build. So now I turn it over to you, my people. If you were managing this $200 billion on behalf of Africa, what would you prioritize first and why? Let's get the conversation going because trust me, Bill Gates is listening and reading your comments. And if you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with your group chats. Thank you so much for watching. That's it for today's show. I'm Sandra Babu-Boateng. Until next time, you take care. Hey you! Thanks so much for watching this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you did, don't forget to subscribe and join the family. Also, visit face2faceafrica.com for your daily news and updates on what's going on within the global Black community so you can stay informed.